So I'm Dom Slade. I'm a director at KPMG and I head up process improvement for KPMG Business Services. So for people that don't know, KPMG is a professional services firm and we help clients with audit, tax, deal advisory and consulting services. And KPMG Business Services actually provides all the non-client facing services to all of our colleagues. And we've got about 17,000 colleagues within the UK. And those services range from everything from finance, HR, secretarial support, facilities, and so on and so forth. So sometimes this is referred to as back office. And the size of KPMG Business Services is about 2,000 people. That's the scope of the role and where we look for process improvements. When I was 10, some decades ago, I used to play a lot of chess. And one of my claims to fame is the fact that I was selected to play for the England under-11 national chess team. But unfortunately, I never got my cap. And the reason I never got my cap to play for England is because I didn't have an English or a British I should say, passport. And the reason for that, which I guess is another fact, is the fact that I'm actually Croatian. You probably wouldn't tell from my name or my accent. So Dom is short for Domagoj, and Slade is actually Slade in Croatian, and it's probably the only Croatian surname I know that smoothly translates into English. So there you go. Two facts. I used to play a lot of chess at national level, and I'm Croatian. That's a really good question, actually, because I've been working for over 20 years now, and my career throughout is focused very much on change management. First in the retail industry and then in management consulting when I joined KPMG 14 years ago. So I did and was introduced to a lot of these concepts, but I think what I would say is it was subconscious. So I wasn't really aware. So if you ask me when I was first introduced to the concepts kind of in more of a formal way, it was actually fairly recently when I applied for the role that I'm doing now to head up process improvement. It was a brand new role within KPMG and to set up that department. And when I was constructing, my business case and my personal case, I did a lot of research, a lot of reading, spoke to a lot of people. And that was actually probably my first kind of, if you like, formal introduction to CI and process improvement. And I think, in terms of first impressions, something that struck me then, and I still passionately believe in actually, is that process improvement and CI is as much about culture, mindset, attitude and people as it is about the tools and techniques and the lean and the Six Sigmas and so on and so forth. And I think you need both. And I think that that point is sometimes overlooked a little bit. Yeah, well, and this is actually linked to, I think, influencers, because I've had so many influences, whether it's, numerous practitioners within KPMG, who sell and deliver this stuff to clients, the clients that I've worked with, and some of the stories there. My own team, is very, very diverse, different levels of expertise and experience. But also I'm surrounded by quite a lot of service operators around me, across KPMG Business Services. I could go on and on in terms of some of those. In terms of stories, if you're to put me on the spot, probably one of my most sort of random in some way influences and stories is my dad. Now my dad, as I said, I'm Croatian, and my dad is kind of a self-made entrepreneur. He's now retired, and he used to run a clothing store in Croatia. And how I funded myself throughout university was basically to spend 2.5 months during the summer holidays running a store for him in some of our tourist resorts. Now you may think, well, where's this going? But actually at the time, he was constantly challenging me on what I now know are continuous and process improvement concepts. So, to make sure that we can open and close the store in record time so that we can maximize customer facing time and sell. Some of the targets around stock rotation that he was putting in and little things that we were trying out. And it was a really, really tough gig and sometimes used to be a bit annoying. But what I'd say is actually, that's a real sort of personal, non-work related story that's always stuck with me. I learned lots through that. And I didn't know, as I say at the time, that this was continuous improvement in action. And the other thing that it did is it installed in me an absolutely unapologetic sense of customer centricity, which I think is absolutely key to doing process and continuous improvement work. So there you go. There's a story, a random story. I think some of the things that actually inspire me about it. So, off the top of my head, what does it mean to me? It means delivering, solving problems, balancing transformation with continuous improvement, because you need both in a business. It means seeing others improve, grow and succeed. It means making people's jobs more interesting. Sometimes we've got to kind of answer the what's in it for me for the operator, and actually often it's just making the job more interesting. It means making customers happy. And if you're customer centric like me, that inspires you and makes you feel good. The other big one is empowering people at all levels of the organization, to feel empowered and to feel confident enough to kick off some change. But for me, it means making process work more accessible. And I think, sometimes it's viewed very much as this niche thing, with a group of very, very highly, Six Sigma, lean, qualified people doing very complicated things. And actually for me, what it means, practicing it and doing it well, is making it accessible to pretty much everybody within an organization to do it to the level, that is appropriate for their area and also their interests. So I've just rattled off probably, 6 or 7 things, but that is, those are the things that it means to me to practice, business improvement, process improvement. Going back to my most recent experience in KPMG Business Services, but also, across the clients that I've worked with, is I'd look to observe and listen to people. And when I say people, again, sort of linked to the previous point, not just senior management, but listen to people at all levels to just try and understand their motivations and aspirations. And I think without looking at anything else, that can often give you a fairly good kind of summary in terms of where, an organization or indeed a department is at. Other things I'd look at is, physical environment, as we're now kind of moving more back into the office space. What does that look like? What does the visual management look like? Use of boards. I'd probably look for and ask about how targets and measures are utilized and used. I'd also look for, a real focus on outcomes, results, benefits. I think I mentioned previously this customer obsession, and I think I'd like to understand the level of customer awareness in an organization, as people understand who their customer is or are, and what that means for them, and how they, I guess, flex their processes to be as customer centric as possible. So customer awareness. I talked about listen, and there's something about the content of what people say, but also the language that they use. So I'd probably listen to the language of the firm. If I think of clients and organizations that I've been to, whether it's in the healthcare sector or in financial services, where, this stuff has worked really, really well, what they all had in common was the use of language that is, associated with continuous improvement and process improvement and the terminology. And just to say, I'm not here looking at some kind of dogmatic, cult style, we all use this terminology. But what I mean is, it can be technical lean terminology, but it can also be broader terminology. And I think language in an organization can often tell you quite a lot about, how advanced and mature organizations are in this space. Think about what motivates you. What do you get a kick out? And if the answer includes, problem solving, changing things, challenging things, delivering quality work, delivering at pace, then the chances are actually this is, an area for you to focus on. I'd also always say, try it out, give it a go. But, you can have a go, I think, at continuous improvement in almost any job. And so I would say to people, try it out, because you're never going to be certain. I would also say to people, get a breadth of experience, particularly, at the start of your career. You're a little bit like a sponge, and you're soaking up all the knowledge and all this stuff. And actually, you're often, a bit like myself, unconsciously or subconsciously learning. So I would say, don't worry too much about the role, but just get a breadth of experience and try new things out. Training is important. And so if you get the opportunity to undergo some formal training, get some qualifications, it's good for your CV. Equally, read it. There's a lot of literature out there and lots of good stuff. So I would encourage anybody at the start of their career to make use of that, but to remember that it's not just about tools and techniques. That is only one part. The mindset, culture, and people thing is really, really important. And last but not least, actually, for me, is I tell them to enjoy it, because, as I say, this stuff is about making the job more interesting. So hopefully they'll enjoy it, and if they're not, it's probably not for them, and if they are, then it probably is.